Hi folks, my name's Mike, just a regular guy from the heartland of America. You know, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody and you can't go to the local diner without running into at least 3 people you went to high school with. I work at the local hardware store, fixing things, selling tools, you know the drill. It's an ordinary life, but it's mine, and I like it just fine. Now, when I'm not at the hardware store, I'm usually out fishing. There's nothing like the peace and quiet of the lake, just me, my fishing rod, and the occasional splash of a fish. But recently, something happened that was anything but ordinary. It was a day like any other. I was at work, helping Mrs. Jenkins find the right paint for her living room, when I noticed something odd. Every now and then I would catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. A flicker, a shadow, something that wasn't quite right. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just the light playing tricks on me. But then, on my way home, I saw it again. This time, it wasn't a flicker or a shadow. It was a house. An old, dilapidated house, tucked away in a part of town I thought I knew like the back of my hand. It was strange, you see, because I'd driven down that road 1,000 times before and I had never seen that house. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere. And the strangest thing was, it wasn't just any house. It was old, yes, but there was something else, something eerie about it. It was like it was watching me, like it had a mind of its own. I've lived here all my life and I thought I knew every inch of this town. But there's this house, see, that I never noticed before. So, I was out one day walking my dog Max when we came across this old, dilapidated house. It was like one of those houses you see in horror movies, you know? It looked like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in years. The wood was all rotten and the windows were all dark and gloomy, like they were hiding secrets of their own. There was this eerie quiet around it, like the world was holding its breath. Max, well, he was acting all strange too. He's usually all over the place, but that day, he refused to move an inch closer to the house. His tail was between his legs and he was whining like he'd seen a ghost or something. I thought it was just him being his usual self, but looking back, I should have known something was off. I tried to shrug it off, decided to take a closer look at the house. As I approached the front door, there was this weird sensation, like a chill running down my spine. It was the middle of summer, but right there, in front of that house, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a winter storm. Even the air felt heavy, like it was filled with dread. I reached out to touch the doorknob, half expecting it to crumble under my touch. But it was cold, colder than anything I've ever felt. It was like touching pure ice. The moment my skin made contact with the metal, this wave of nausea hit me. It was so strong that I had to step back, catch my breath. Looking at Max, I could see he was still on high alert, his eyes never leaving the house. It was then that I realized that we weren't alone. There was something in that house, something that didn't want us there. I should have turned back then, but I didn't. The next day, I went back to the house. I was curious, you know? I mean, who wouldn't be? There was something about that old place that drew me in, like a moth to a flame. I guess some folks might have called it foolish or even crazy, but the mystery of it all was just too much for me to resist. I stepped inside, the creaky wooden floor groaning under my weight. The air was thick with dust, and the whole place smelled like time itself had come to a standstill. It was eerily quiet, a kind of silence that made your skin crawl. Every now and then I'd hear a strange noise, a soft rustling like old paper being crumpled, or a distant thud, like something heavy being moved around. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was just the house settling, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched, like there were eyes on me, tracking my every move. I explored the place, room by room. Most of it was just as you'd expect. Old furniture covered in sheets, decades of dust and cobwebs. But then I found a room that was different. It was filled with stacks of old newspapers, all yellowed and brittle with age. I picked up one and it crumbled a bit in my hand. The headline caught my eye. Local man goes missing. I picked up another. Teenage girl disappears. The stories were all the same, all local folks who'd vanished without a trace. The dates ranged over several decades. A chill ran down my spine. I looked around the room, suddenly aware of the oppressive silence. The strange noises seemed louder now, more insistent. I felt a heavy dread settle in my stomach. I thought it was just a creepy old house, but I was wrong, so very wrong. Things started going downhill after that visit. I started seeing things, hearing things. I couldn't sleep. After the police left, my house didn't feel like my house anymore. It was like I was living in a stranger's place, a stranger who wasn't too keen on having me around. During the day, I'd see shadows dart across the room, out of the corner of my eye. But when I'd turn to look, nothing. Just the same old furniture and the same old walls. But at night, oh boy, at night it was a whole different ball game. The whispers, they'd start as soon as I'd turn out the lights. Soft at first, like a sigh of the wind, but then they'd grow louder, more persistent, like they were trying to tell me something. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It was angry, it was demanding, and then the dreams started. Nightmares, really. I'd see a faceless figure standing at the foot of my bed, just staring, and I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding like a drum. I tried talking about it to my buddies, but they just laughed it off. "Too many horror movies, Mike," they'd say. But I knew what I was experiencing was real. It was too vivid, too consistent to be just a figment of my imagination. I even went to a priest, hoping for some divine intervention. He gave me a cross and said a prayer. But the whispers only grew louder, the nightmares more terrifying. I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do anymore. I was losing sleep, losing weight, losing my mind. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the police showed up. I was at my wit's end, and then the police showed up. The police said they were investigating a series of unsolved missing persons cases. They had traced it back to the house. That's what they told me. I mean, I was just a regular guy, no connection to any of this. But that house, it was mine now. And then came the twist that could have knocked me off my feet, if I wasn't already sitting. The house was previously owned by a serial killer. Yeah, you heard that right, a serial killer. And not just any serial killer, but one who had vanished without a trace some years ago. The police never found him, never found any of the bodies, just a string of missing persons cases and a whole lot of questions. But the victims, they were still here. I mean, not physically here, but their spirits, their souls, they were trapped in this house, haunting it, haunting me. It was like they were calling out to me, desperate to be heard. It was their stories that were causing all the strange happenings. I was scared, sure, but there was also this sense of responsibility. I mean, these were people who had been brutally murdered, their lives cut short. They were crying out for justice, for their stories to be told. And I was the only one who could hear them. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want to be some kind of medium or ghost whisperer. I was just a guy who bought a house, But now I'm something else. I'm their voice, their connection to the world. I tell their stories, I give them a voice. And this house, this haunted house, it's not just a building anymore. It's a symbol, a testament to the lives that were lost here. It's their stage, their platform. And I'm just the narrator. I was just an ordinary guy living an ordinary life. But now, I'm the voice for the dead. And this haunted house, it's their stage.